I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6:30 PM. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Here.
Councilmember Shockley.
Here.
Councilmember Pasqua is not present at this time. Vice President LeBlanc,
Here.
President Lima.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. In the event of an emergency, those present in council chambers can exit out either doors 1 or 2 to the back parking lot or to the front lawn of Town Hall. Could I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 13th, 2023?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion. Madam Clerk, was a draft set of these minutes posted, or is it's just last week? Okay. Any discussion from members of the council? Did you receive any amendments? And they were made? Great, thank you. Hearing no further discussion, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Abstain.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 1 abstention. Motion passes.
Moving on to item 3, public hearings and public comment on docketed items only. Are there any members here in council chambers who'd like to make a comment on an item on tonight's agenda? Any members on Zoom? Don't have anyone watching on Zoom. Oh, we have one. Would anyone on Zoom like to make a public comment on a docketed item this evening? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. Moving on to item 6, report of the town manager. Mr. Parrillo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to give the council an update on the sewer flushing project. That's
Excuse me,
going
point
on.
of order. Madam Clerk, can you just note for the record, Mr. Pasqua is not present. Thank you.
So Inland Waters began last week flushing the sewer system. They have completed the contract as of yesterday. They did flush from Arbor Drive off of Hopkins Hill through Ramblewood to Tiogav and to the Sandy Bottom Pump Station. They also pumped from there down Route 117 to the town line. Although the strength of the order has decreased, it has not totally been eliminated. There are 2 cleaning items still pending that we hope will be beneficial. First is that West Warwick, who owns the pump station adjacent to Amgen in West Greenwich, plans on getting that cleaned out very shortly. And also Bob Rose from West Warwick is trying to get a confirmation on that exact date, but hopefully that's going to happen soon. And Joe is also working on getting a bid to have the Sandy Bottom pump station itself cleaned out. Since we kind of flushed everything to the station, now the station itself needs to be cleansed. So he's getting bids for that. In addition to that, Joe's going to be working with West Warwick to monitor the hydrogen sulfide gas that's in the sewer manholes to try to establish some trends and locate any sources of concentrated levels. We also are going to purchase a monitor in order for him to do that. I think it's an important tool that he should have in his toolbox that we currently don't have. So I've authorized him to purchase one as opposed to renting one. So we're hoping that this is on the way to recovery. There is still, again, some odors there. We are going to start to discuss an ongoing maintenance program using our own vac truck to do the vetting of the system and keep it clean as possible. So that's kind of where we are. Not 100% going, but definitely better than where we were.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Thanks for that update. Do we have like an annual maintenance program that we're gonna create going forward so that this doesn't happen?
So with Joe and Maria, we're going to kind of sit down and kind of put together a plan as to how often this should happen and make sure that we have the resources internally to do that, whether our employees need to be trained in order to do that, or we need to set up a contract with an outside firm whatever the future holds, we're going to do that. So this doesn't really happen again.
Thank you.
Going off of that, Councilmember Ludwig had asked a question at your last update. If the flushing was part of the Weston and Sampson contract, can you confirm? I assume it's not.
That's an additional charge. So if we wanted Weston and Sampson to do it, they would do that, but that was not part of what we're paying for them to do. But they did, it is in there as an additional item if we wanted them to do it, which we may if we can't do it internally.
Further discussion from members of the council? Councilmember Ludwig.
Thank you, Manager Parrillo. Do you have a sense of the general cost here and where is it being allocated from?
The cost for inland waters was about $14,000, and I'm going to take that out of the sewer enterprise fund.
Okay, thank you. This is, I know it's concentrated to a few different areas, but it affects a lot of residents in town. So thank you very much for quickly assembling the team and trying to get to the bottom of it.
Thanks.
Further discussion from members of the council? Councilmember Shockley.
If the smell doesn't totally go away after we have West Warwick do their due diligence near Amgen and we do the Sandy Bottom, do we have any other ideas? I just want to make sure that we are eliminating this so people can have a.
I think once we're
quality
able
life.
to get that monitor, we'll be able to really isolate it. And there has been some discussion as to whether there are a couple of restaurants in town that may be contributing to the problem by not having their
Grease traps.
grease traps and so forth cleaned out regularly. So we're hoping that if it does continue, we're able to isolate it and then check that area to make sure that we can find out what the cause is. But it's going to be ongoing.
Yeah, and I don't know, are we planning on reaching out to the restaurants? I know some probably fall into the impacted area.
Yeah. Bob Rose has been
Perfect.
doing that. Yeah, he's kind of the pre-treatment director in West Warwick. So it's kind of his role is to work on that. So he has been reaching out to the restaurants.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion from members of the council? Great, thank you. Next we have report of the finance director. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, don't buy it.
Any requests?
Always like some of those things you get at your grandma.
We've got two grandmas up here.
Don't buy it.
You guys covered?
Yeah.
Wait, are those ones that melt in your mouth?
So if I can start, so the 22 audit is underway. The CLA has been over to the school to do their part of the budget. They're working on that as we speak. They've already gotten all the documentation from the school. So that part of it is done. They've also begun to engage on the town side. We've sent them numerous documents so they could do some of their pre-work before they actually physically get here. So that's definitely happening right now. We did sign a contract with CLA to do the 23 audit that was approved by the Auditor General yesterday. So once CLA is done with the 22, they're going to go right into the 23 with the hope of a December 31st completion on both of them. So that's where we are kind of with the audit, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Civetti.
First, any discussion on the audit? Councilmember Ludwig.
Can, two things. Can you just remind us what the extension period was for 22 submission?
Well, the due date was December 31st, and
And
we've
then
been working,
I
we've
think
been
we got the
working.
extension approval.
So we have we are in touch with the Auditor General monthly. So the extension is kind of until it gets done, but we have monthly check-ins with him and his staff to see where we are. And he was very satisfied with the progress we've made to this point. and feels that the town of Coventry financially is heading in the right direction.
Yeah, so they never,
Is your mic
they
on, Bob?
never actually issued. So not, I think, yeah, sorry. They never actually issued a formal extension because they knew the situation we're in and they didn't want to have to grant an extension and then constantly keep
Okay.
moving that. So as the town manager just mentioned, we have an agreement that we generally have a meeting every 2-3 weeks, maybe a month, and just to give them updates. And the most recent one was earlier today, and as town manager mentioned, we've been providing information to the auditors. What we're trying to do, I can certainly give them all the trial balances as of today, but as we're still working on them, as you know, the vice president could tell you, it creates more work for them to constantly get revised trial balances.
Yeah.
So the agreement today, you know, what we provided them, they're working on. They keep sending us with information requests. So based on, you know, some of the testing, we sent them disbursement journals, our year-end cutoffs. We've done our year-end cutoffs already. So they are staying busy on it. The goal is that hopefully the end of next week, they have, if not all our trial balances, the bulk of them. And based on the meeting today, they still have a goal that by July 31st, they'll be completed with the field work and hopefully getting a 22 audit issued by the end of August is the intent. And then as town
just-
manager said, we'll roll
one-
right into 23.
Okay, one last question. Is council leaderships, is someone involved in those monthly meetings with the Auditor General, or how's that being reported back?
Do you want to take who's at the meetings?
So thank you. They don't see the need for it. Frankly, there are 12 parties involved in the meeting, 2 representatives from the Department of Revenue, whoever, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people from the Auditor General's office, including the Auditor General himself. Town side is always myself, Mr. Civetti, Mr. Parrillo. Today, we were joined by the Deputy Finance Director, who I guess is going to be the Finance Director for the school department, and audit personnel from CLA. Their lead audit person, I think, is Steve Gross. You know, the one comment that really jumped out at me today, well, there were a few actually. One was from Steve Gross. You know, CLA said that for the entire time that they've had the audit here, they've never really had productive schedules provided to them, that this is the first time that they've had any information provided to them on a regular basis that was, first of all, a regular basis, second of all, was accurate and wasn't walked back subsequently. The other thing that was said today that I thought was noteworthy was that the Auditor General said that the file was noted by Mr. Hoyle, the prior Auditor General, that progress was never noted in any of these meetings that had happened with the town before this, that it was, you know, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back every time. He's very pleased with where we are at this point. And from what I heard on the call today, we should be in position, you know, to start the 23 audit in September, somewhere in that range. So, you know, you're on track for, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. You know, you're on track for, you know, your school bonds, you know, for when it'll be necessary to go out for them. And, you know, your 23 audit, you know, should happen on cue. We should be in pretty good shape.
Can we continue getting the monthly update, whether in this session or in the manager update? Thank you.
Further discussion, Vice President LeBlanc.
I believe the town manager mentioned that there was an engagement letter that was signed for 2023. What was the fee for that engagement letter?
75,000.
75,000. And what was the 2022?
60,
68, yeah.
67, 68, yes, yeah. So 6,800 of that is part of that
68,000, right, for the, 6,800 for the.
is the school, yeah. 6,800 of that is could be paid by the school.
Got it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come in front of council because it's professional services?
Correct.
Just wanted to confirm. Thanks.
Further discussion from members of the council on the audit update. Yes.
So just, I don't know if you're aware, but over the last couple of days, we had folks in from Keystone, who's our general ledger company provider. So last week we had a representative here that helped with some of the payroll items that we've been having a module, basically a training update. And we did the same for the general ledger this week. So for 2 days this week, we had a representative here from Keystone that's helping to clear some of the problems. You know, there's some items that are happening behind the scenes that he's helping to assist with so that we can get some of these reconciliations complete. So the intent is to have him back again. Once we can get 22 underway, he's going to come in, help us try to clear up some of the things that are grandfathered in from in 23. So that's why I'm optimistic that I think we're, you know, everybody's getting on the same page. The staff's being trained how to utilize the software that we have, you know, rather than discussion saying it can't work, it doesn't work. I think a lot of their eyes were open that there's stuff there. We just don't know how to utilize the capability of the software. So I think the trainings were very productive the last week and then also this week. And I think that's going to be going a long way to help us, you know, meet the timeframes that we're on.
Vice President LeBlanc.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we don't have to spend $500,000 on a new software system.
And that's my opinion, correct? Thank you.
Council Ludwig.
Can I just ask a quick question about your Keystone Point? The training, was that just for town employees? Was that also school side or?
The school department, they visited the school department maybe 3 weeks ago. So the school department had them visit over there, met with their personnel. They did their own thing and then we met here.
Okay, thank you.
You know,
And we'll go back to May 2023 budget to actual report.
can I provide a copy of this to the?
Yes.
council if I can come up?
I'd like to.
All right, so I apologize. This wasn't in your packet earlier. It's just been a busy week, a lot going on. So this is fresh off the press. But again, what you have in front of you is the budget versus actual through May 31st. Again, the first note there in red, you know, we're still working on it, working on reconciliation. So I think we're in a much better shape than we were obviously when you received previous ones. And you can see that when you just compare some of the figures. So just bullet highlight. Overall on this presentation, as of May 31st, we're showing an operating deficit of approximately $412,000. When you break down the components, and here you have the revenue presented first, followed by the expenditures, both by department. But revenue shortfall year to date is $14,321,000. Approximately 4.5 million of that is state aid for education, which will be recorded by June 30th. So you have about another $9 million of discrepancies. Obviously, there's fees being collected, there's taxes, but reality is the, you know, taxes, our last big collection period was the month of May. So that's why I think when you looked at the previous month's report, we were showing an $8 million deficit. Well, we had significant collections in the month of May that obviously dropped that to where we're currently at. Some departments, and same thing with the expenditures. These are just some of the highlights, I think, but I think a lot of them go hand in hand where if you look at the budget that's on the agenda for this evening, you see where we reduce some of the line items, proposed budgets, and you could see the results. I think similar results here. So the town clerk's revenue is currently a shortfall of about 280,000. Investment income, it's currently showing that we're over budget by 235,000. But my little note is that in there is that a large portion of that is because we have an unrealized gain. I think as we talked previously, we have some investments that are invested in equities. And from the accounting standards, we have to show that at market value. So the market value as of June of 22, we were down about 1.4 million. We've recovered some of that to the tune of 400,000+. Again, it's not physical cash, but it's something we have to show. So again, I just caution you, if you look at where we're at currently and you see that, hey, you know, we brought in 600,000+ in investment income, and this year we're only budgeting, I think, just under 300,000. It's because of that unrealized gains. And we're in the process of liquidating all the investments so that we're actually in secure assets. That process will be completed by June 30th, just on a side note. Taxes, currently we were under budget by about 11 million, but keep in mind in there is approximately 3.4 million of motor vehicle taxes that were budgeted that of course we couldn't bill because the state took over, and that's under the state aid classification now. Police department revenue is currently under budget by about 138,000. Then on the expenditure side, currently the expenditures we're under budget, so that's a good thing, by 13.9 million. However, the school department appropriation, again, for the 1 month worth. Yeah, but I'm sorry, let me go back. So excluding the school department appropriations, 1 month worth of our budgeted expenditures, roughly 3.3 million. So we could estimate the month of June, we have probably another 3 million worth of expenses, just daily operations and that. But a couple line items you could see. The balance due to the school department for the state aids currently showing a favorable variance, but that's going to break even at the end of the year. You know, there's 4.4 million in revenue that's going to come in. We're going to give that right to the school. Same thing, the town appropriation through June. Currently, it's showing that we're under budget by 4.1 million. That gets transferred to them in June. So that's going to obviously offset. Town manager's department's currently over budget. Primarily, that's due to the payout that was made to the former town manager based on the, the settlement and just severance contract. A town clerk's office currently under budget, but the primary driver for that in their department is the transfer tax. So if you recall the budgets prior to the one we're proposing this year, the transfer tax comes in as revenue, and then we have to transfer it to the land trust. I've removed that line item, or it's proposed to be removed from the budget for fiscal 24, so that we don't have that discrepancy. Revenue's down, expenses down, but it shouldn't, my opinion, never should have been revenue within your general fund budget to start with. Town solicitor's budget's currently over budget by approximately $110,000. Treasurer's budget currently under budget by $245,000. And that's due to obviously elimination of some positions and also just how they budgeted some of the healthcare costs in previous year. And I don't know where their number came from. Tax collector's budget's currently showing under budget by $227,000. However, $200,000 of that is the transfer to supplement the sewer department. That's not recorded, but just got recorded in this month, so it's not reflected as of May 31st. Police department showing an under budget of approximately 2.1 million. Roads and bridges under budget by 383,000. Vehicle maintenance under budget by 376,000, or over budget, excuse me. Recreation department under budget by 395,000. Library 157,000 under budget. And the debt service is showing over budget by 924,000. However, if you refer back to the school department section of the budget, a portion of the debt service was listed as school department, but when it got posted in the general ledger, it all showed as debt service. Again, in this year's budget, I put all the debt service under the debt service category. So that would be a reallocation. So again, we are still working on reconciliation. So I can't say that's 100% accurate, but I think we're on a good track. And just based on where the numbers at and what's anticipated, I can't tell you the dollar amount, but I would anticipate having a deficit for the current fiscal year that we're in. Obviously, this time next month, we'll have a much better indication because we'll be through the month of June, and we'll obviously be catching up on a lot of those reconciliations. But I think we made great strides in the finance department, and everything is, you'd be happy to know all our receipts are recorded up to date. Everything's done timely. So transactions and just the policies we put in effect in the finance department, we won't have this. Well, what happened this past year won't be happening again. I can assure you of that.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Thank you very much for the summary. Greatly appreciate it, especially the details. 2 questions.
Yes.
First one, we went over the police department is under budget by about 2.2 million, but we didn't state why.
If you look at it, a lot of it's within the personnel costs. Their personnel, they're significant, they've been significantly down. I think they were
Yeah, I
about
think they're
47
down,
officers.
they're down almost 10 offices right now. So I think that's a majority of the savings, and the overtime is elevated because of that, but not to the extent where it's making up for that savings there.
So I completely understand that, but I guess going to this year's budget, if they remain at the same level of staff that they currently have, are we still going to have that the savings for this year as well?
No, I think currently, and town manager could correct me, based on some new hires, recent appointments, people we have in the academy, they feel like they'll be at full capacity. In our current projection, which we'll talk later this evening, I guess, or an executive session, you have, I believe we only have 2 positions at this point that aren't filled. So I
We
think
have-
we're getting back to. full
Yeah, so
capacity.
we just swore in 3 officers over the last 3 weeks. We have 4 going to the academy in July. And that should put us right at, I think 54, 55 for January.
Okay.
So we should be in good shape and we 57, yeah, with the chief and the major, yes. So we should definitely be hopefully up to par and with the contract. I think it's going to be a very positive year for the police department.
Great. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And then you had mentioned that we most likely will end up in a deficit this year. Now, when you say deficit, based on how I read the town's financial statements, there's budgetary basis of recording activity, and then there's gap. Are you saying we're going to have a gap deficit as well?
My intent, to be honest with you, is that our gap basis is going to mirror our budgetary basis. Just
There's always an
because-
adjustment at I think it's page 168 of the.
Yeah,
financial statement.
usually that adjustments for encumbrances, but the intent is to not have encumbrances this year. Everything would be liquidated and tied out. I think one of the resolutions on tonight's agenda is to take the capital money and put it into a capital revolving fund.
There is.
So one of the case would be, or case for that is at year end, if we have a requisition out there, a purchase order for the condenser or for the generator, excuse me, for the generator for 300,000. Well, for gap purposes, that wouldn't be an expense because we didn't receive it yet, but
Understood.
for budget, we would expense it. But by transferring those unused funds into a capital projects fund, we're going to be expensing it for general fund, and we'd also be expensing it budgetary basis.
Okay.
So
I
again.
I completely understand. The reason why I asked that question is because I have always heard that we're going to be in a deficit, but when you actually get the financial statements and you look at that, we haven't been in a deficit since 2018. When you look at the budgetary versus gap. So just wanted to at least ask the question. So thank you.
Councilmember Shockley.
No, this is something I was going to ask for after reading through this, so I really do appreciate it. And I'm wondering if you could dumb it down even further, to a certain extent, just, in budgetary terms, sometimes a negative is positive and vice versa. So, when taking items A through N,
Mhm.
What are positive numbers? Like what are in the black as opposed to the things that are in the red?
Yeah, I think, just looking at it overall, I think the positive of what we're looking at is where on the expenditure side, we're under budget. So we had savings. We didn't spend everything that was intended. But unfortunately, the revenue shortfall looks like it's gonna be higher than what the savings are on the expenses.
Yeah,
Right.
no, and that makes sense. And I think it's great that we are coming up that way with the revenues not coming in where we would have intended them to. Really just so I could read it. So I could quickly take a look at it and be like, okay, those numbers add up to this, then I subtract out these, and that's where it got us 13.9 million.
Yeah.
Just as a way to just be beneficial for those of us who aren't doing this on a day-to-day. But this is really helpful. As I was reading through this revenue and expenditure report, I was hoping for something like this so that I could make sense of it. And I'm glad that some of these numbers I was right. But sometimes when you see that negative, it's like, is that a negative that makes a positive or vice versa? So this is really helpful.
And in the future, I will have it with the packet again, just with the training and everything going on. I just finalized putting it together, but in the future, I will make sure you have it ahead of time. But when you're looking at the page, if I could just refer you to page 31. So on page 31, when you mentioned the 13,909,000. So when you look at the second column in from the left, you got the adjusted budget, the year to date, your actual. And so that's where it's showing available. So it's showing we had budgeted 114 million for expenditures. Year to date, we've spent 100,000. We've encumbered, so we have purchase orders or requisitions out there that haven't been finalized yet. And it's showing available. So a favorable variance on the expenditure side of 13,909,000. So that's where that 13 is coming from.
And were you talking about page 31 of your report and page 47 in the packet or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was on the wrong page at first. So
I'm sorry. I don't have the agenda in front of me, the whole packet.
Further discussion, Councilor Ludwig.
I had just a couple questions. Maybe this is more for the town manager. Can you just give us a few examples on 2A and 2D? What are some of the reasons the clerk revenue would be a shortfall? And what would be just some examples of why, or what revenue does the police department bring in?
The police department revenue is mostly admin fees for police cars. So we charge an administrative fee when we put a police car on a detail, and details in general bring in revenue for the town. So the details have been very low this year. So that revenue is that bad. So we've made up for that this year's budget. But that's the biggest revenue, should be a revenue producer for police department is details and detailed vehicles.
Okay, and then can you just give us an example on a revenue shortfall with the clerk? Is this not as many people?
I'm assuming the
sorry,
license, is that
businesses?
licenses, Joanne? Shortfall in licensing? I'm assuming.
The realty tax is the big component as well.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, what is that?
When there's, Joanne, you can explain, but realty tax, when there's sales of property.
When you make a sale of a home, you have to pay a realty stamp to the state. It's so much per thousand on the property. It's like $4.60 per thousand. So if you buy a $200,000 house, you pay that realty stamp, and a portion of it goes to the state, portion of it goes to us, and then our portion, we keep half, and the other half goes to the land trust.
I'm not surprised with interest rates in the sevens that less people are buying homes. But that was interesting. I didn't know that was part of that budget. Thank you for explaining. I did have one more question. So in general, when we say right now, as of the end of the month of May, there's an operating deficit of 400K. Is the natural, or is it likely to assume that at the end of June, that number will probably be even higher? So we'd be at 500,000 plus deficit.
That would be my guess, yes.
Okay. So if we know there's going to be a deficit at this point, and we wouldn't have known this if you didn't provide this. So thank you. In the past, we're just guessing. But now that we know that, we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we know it's going to be at least the 400K. Can we think about some steps that we may need to take as a council to either, make up this funding in some way or cut expenditures in some other way? I mean, I know that nothing will fix $500,000 here, but I'm assuming we're going to be needing cash and things to pay off the final expenditures. Where are we going to get that?
Again, you did come into the year with a cumulative surplus. So essentially by running the deficit, we're reducing that surplus. Essentially on a GAAP basis. So I guess, Mr. Vice President, this may go back to your earlier question, but the way I understand the budget, what happened in the current fiscal year is the council approved an ordinance to utilize, I believe it was $250,000 of fund balance to help pay for the design costs and stuff relative to the school construction bond. So that wasn't part of your actual budget. So all things equal on a budgetary on a GAAP basis, if we were to break even everywhere, we would be showing a deficit of 250,000. Because from a GAAP basis, so in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, even though you're voting to utilize fund balance, we can't show that as revenue again. The auditors can't report it as revenue. So if we were break even, everything came out exactly to your budget, your fiscal 2023 audit would show a deficit of 250,000 because the council made a motion to utilize fund balance. So that could be one of the budgetary gap differences as we're having the discussion. Because for budget purposes, you would say that is a revenue item, but again, utilizing your own equity isn't revenue.
So,
but I don't, as far as having to come up with a plan and appropriate additional money, it's basically just going to flow through to it's going to reduce the cumulative surplus that you had coming into the fiscal year.
So is it appropriate? It's more of a question for the council here. Is it appropriate for us to consider ways to make up that quote unquote gap?
Well, if I can answer, if you don't mind. I think the budget we put forward for you for next fiscal year, we're trying to do that by being conservative or more realistic, I should say, on the revenue side. Because when you mentioned town clerk, you know, the realty tax, just that line item alone is a reason why the town clerk's currently showing $150,000 shortfall, because it was budgeted at $700,000 in fiscal 23, and year to date, they've only taken in 500 change. So next year, we've at least in the proposed budget you have, we've excluded the land trust component. So if that was done in the previous fiscal year, rather than having $700,000 in her budget, the town clerk's budget would have only been $350,000, just the portion the town gets to keep. So now when there was a shortfall in the general fund, we're only realizing that shortfall, you know, on the revenue side. We're not realizing double that shortfall. So I think when you compare where we are year to date, compare it to what we proposed, or town manager's proposed budget and your, I forget the term we use.
The docket tonight,
the budget-
resolution.
the budget you currently have on there, you look at the revenue line items. I think our revenue line items, as we're proposing for next fiscal year, are more in line with where we're really going to finish this year. So I think it was just very aggressive revenue budgeting, or, you know, maybe slow down. You're right, sales of real estate impact that, but I think the way you're taking care of it is approving a budget, in my opinion, that's more responsible and more fiscally sound than what the previous year's budget was.
Thank you.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Just to follow up on that conversation, the market also has been pretty well going up this month. So I would presume that if we're still in those equities, which I think we are, we probably have some savings there that we hadn't budgeted for. That's going to offset some of this 400,000. I would just
Correct.
presume here. So I just wanted to make that comment. But going back to the 2022-2023 audit update, you had made reference, Mr. Civetti, that you thought we were going to get the 2022 year-end audit by August, but I don't think we heard when we would get to 2023. At least, is there a
The goal is to have that issued by December 31st in accordance with state law. You know, we're going to have a meeting, town manager, myself, we're going to meet with the school department. We've already had meetings with the actuary, and we're trying to set the timetables now so that everybody knows we need to meet that December 31st deadline. And
these are
because,
issued financials, not draft, correct? Just
yeah, well, to be
confirming
honest
it.
with you, I'd have to see what the process is internally. I've been in communities where we get the draft to the council approves the draft.
Mhm.
I don't know if that takes place here,
It
if we
does.
come to the council with a final. So it's very possible that you would have the draft. Remember, there's a couple things that often hold up, and it's not just in Coventry, every community. The, pension reports, but hopefully we're going to be good with those this year, right? We're getting a jump on that. The actuary already said we'll have those in September, as long as we provide the information by July 31st. We do have to rely on the Auditor General's office to do the transparency information that goes in your report. So depending how quick that they get that and turn it around. So it's possible you have a draft, but if it is a draft, it would be a completed draft, that it's just waiting for you to ratify it at your last meeting in December. And again, with the holidays, sometimes that gets tricky.
I
But
would be happy with a draft by December. So I just
that's what
wanted at
we're
least the
shooting for.
deadline,
I
so.
think I have a dinner on that, don't I?
You may. Thank you very much.
Depending upon who pays, it may be reportable. Campaign contribution.
Yeah,
Yes, that's fine.
the best croissants in Rhode Island. Councilmember Shockley.
I know I could buy you a crumble cookie. I just found that out today. Can I just ask, going back once again to the town clerk's budget? So she had a $700,000 budget for fees. But she only was expected to keep $350,000 of that, and $350,000 would go to the land trust. So if she only got 500,000, we don't owe the land trust 350,000. We only owe them 250,000.
Correct.
So is that factored into this amount?
Yes. If,
Okay.
if you were to look on the revenue side here, you'll see the dollar amount that shows that is allocated for the land trust. Then if you look on the expenditure side, you'll see a matching amount. We may be off like $200 on it, but those two numbers should always match each other. That's why I've taken it out of next year's proposed budget.
Right, but she's not really down as much as it seems.
No, but when we just,
Because
I think the question
Yeah.
is when we were just looking at the revenue side, why was her revenue down? So-
it's an interesting thing. It's why I think I might need a color coded sheet
Yeah.
to know what's a positive, what's a negative, where it
Yeah.
plays itself out because I find it interesting. It's just sometimes your head to use numbers like an auditor uses numbers is a different way of calculating things. So, yeah, I think this was very helpful and it's a great way to move forward as the numbers are correct instead of having a summary of something that was kind of guesswork up until this point.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Sorry, one last question. I'm assuming we have debt covenants that require statements be issued by a certain time period. Have we gotten extensions on those for 2022 and 2023? And if not, we probably should.
There are certain requirements. There was a report that was due the end of March that we're in violation of, but we've been working with Steve Massaroni to issue a note what it does. And Steve would be able to better elaborate on that. But by not meeting those deadlines, it puts us on a different level for reporting. So some of our future bond reports would have to mention, my understanding would have to mention that we haven't met the timetables. The infrastructure bank today contacted me. Obviously, they are looking for the 22 audit. I told them where we're at. We're sending them the 21 because they never received the 21 audit. So there's different correspondence that we're staying on top. The town solicitor is working with us for, there's a UCC filing that's due in August. So he's working on that, make sure that's filed. So I can tell you the organizations we had to deal with, they've all been they understand the situation we're in and they're working with us, but we are in default to some of those items, but we're working on it. And
Okay.
so, yeah.
I asked that for us, for the auditors are probably going to ask for it as well. So just throwing it out there.
Solicitor Angel.
From a legal standpoint, they are a technical default, but they are not a default that triggers other penalties at this point, and they're curable on a go-forward basis with respect to issuance of new obligation.
Thank you.
Further discussion from members of the council? Any last words? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Civetti. Moving on to item 8, resolutions of the council. Item A, resolution 2023-36 to award asphalt paving improvements program as part of the Pave It Forward initiative to Cardi Corporation, 400 Lincoln Avenue, Warwick, Rhode Island, 02888. This is on page 50 in your council packets. Resolution reads as follows: resolution for the award of asphalt pavement improvements. Whereas the Department of Public Works requests an award of the asphalt pavement improvements program as part of the Pave It Forward initiative. And whereas the town of Coventry will pay for this initiative with funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, fair share development fees, and state funding as provided. And whereas the town of Coventry has identified numerous roadways in town that require rehabilitation work in order to provide safe passage for the residents and visitors. This identification and prioritization of roadways that requires rehabilitation was provided by the pavement management firm StreetScan that conducted the road survey in 2021 to 2022. Now therefore be it resolved, the Coventry Town Council hereby awards the asphalt pavement improvements bid to Cardi Corporation of 400 Lincoln Avenue, Warwick, Rhode Island, 02888 for 1.192. I'm sorry, let me read that like an adult. $1,192,355.40. This work will be completed within 90 days and is fully bonded. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I would like to make an amendment to the resolution first, if possible.
Just so we can open it up first.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc. Second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion, Vice President LeBlanc.
Per a previous discussion with the town manager, the second whereas should state whereas the town of Coventry will pay for this initiative with funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, period. I will make that motion.
There's a motion from Vice President LeBlanc to amend the resolution. Do I have a second? Second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion. Vice President LeBlanc.
That came from a discussion with the town manager because I had asked the dollar amounts for ARPA, fair share, and state funding. We aren't sure about state funding. We think we might be getting some in the next 6 months, but because this work has to be done relatively in short order, we will get state funding for additional roads in the future. And then we weren't sure how much of the fair share development fees would could be used currently. So we thought for this round of paving, the best approach would be just to use ARPA funds for right now. That's where this all came from. Just wanted to provide that insight.
Councilmember Shockley.
No, my question was going to be how we were breaking down the second whereas, so question answered.
Further discussion on the amendment? Council Ludwig.
I don't know if we're only talking about the amendment
Just
right
the
now and then.
Yep, just the second whereas. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we're now back to the amended resolution. Before I go to Councilor Ludwig, maybe Director McGee would like to come up and just preface this since our last conversation last week. $716.
Good evening. The resolution as amended that you're looking at now could change some of the things that we're looking at doing here now. We bid these prices based upon the estimate on a Warwick bid that was done just in April. And that's how we formulated this bid. However, the bid came in substantially lower for the tonnage, so we were able to get all the roads that we were looking at getting done for that 1.192 million. However, the 2.7 that we were looking at as a total package, we can add an additional 33 roads to this, but not if you only approve 1.192 for this contract. The contract allows for us, the town, to either decrease or increase the scope of the work. So if we have this low rate, we were hoping, and if it's okay, I'd like to pass these out to you folks. You can see the difference bid tabulation. That we were actually going to be able to get into the 2024 and 2025 list, which I'm now having to recalculate if this happens to go through. That list you see in the front, that's basically about 1.5 million value. If we go back out to another bid, we could see these things substantially change and not be able to get these. Now, I like to preface all of this is that whatever work we're doing is it's an estimate. Anything you do in road work is not carved in stone. When we mill a road and we're taking 1.5 inches off, sometimes we don't have the 3 inches of asphalt we're supposed to, and we're down to dirt. So we have to put a leveling course in, or there's things that come up that we can't. So we may go over on some of these line items. So don't promise your constituents that we would do all these roads if for some reason we have other costs that come up that we can't get all of them done. We can only get 25 roads done instead of 33 roads. And I tried to separate them all, so everybody's got this about the same $300,000 worth of value based upon the PCI index from the study.
So this sheet is what was shown to us for 2023-24 last week, or is this have the added ones?
This is the added ones. We already have.
These are in addition to
These are
what
in
you
addition to the
showed.
24 that were in part of the package.
Oh,
So we can get a lot done this year if you folks
so it's the additional, so 1.5 on top of the 1.19.
correct. So that would be, basically, we're looking at the 300,000 that's in fair share development fees. Supposedly, the state's going to approve approximately 500,000 for this town for funding. Plus, if you continue with the 2.2 from opera, we'll have more than enough funds to do that, and the expenses such as police details that we have to pay for also.
So what you're proposing to the council here, or you're asking for consideration, is we can essentially get twice the number of roads for the same cost we were looking at last week,
Yeah. Yes, we can.
but we need to amend the resolution.
Well, the resolution, if as it's presented, the 1.192 is for Cardi.
So
That also allows us to be able to add additional
Oh,
under
okay.
those costs if you fund the 2.2 million from the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
And if you don't, if you only are giving 1.192 from ARPA funds, then there's no place to go beyond that.
If I can,
Solicitor Angel.
on the contract, the bid award would be to the Cardi Corporation. But the contract itself permits for the bid amount to be increased based on the price per tonnage.
Or decreased.
Or decreased. And in this case, the council had approved, I don't remember what meeting it was, but it was 2.2 million in town expenditure this year, whether it be from ARPA or fair share development or whatever it is, plus anticipated revenues from the governor's office of 500,000. And in talking with Mr. McGee over the last couple of days and going over his bid evaluation and the contract documents, it would seem that when Mr. McGee first appeared before the group, he said, okay, we can get, what was it, 25 roads done for, roughly, fit within the 2.7. Well, now it seems as though we can get those 25 roads done for the 1.1 or 1.2. And I think what I'm hearing is that he'd like to use the terms of the Cardi contract to just continue onward and pave as many roads as he can up to the 2.7 million.
That's correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's what we had
Exactly
talked about.
Exactly it.
Anything else before I go to the back to the council?
Now, if you don't have any other questions,
I'll go back to Councilor Ludwig. You had your hand raised before. I didn't know if you still had.
I always have lots of questions. Can you refresh us really quick? So if we stayed with the 1.192, just before we talk about amending the amounts, those were the roads from the last packet. And then and I know this is kind of what you were saying before, I just want to double check here. The proposed additional roadways, these are all in addition.
Yes.
Correct.
If you go up to
2024,
2.7.
2025, and even some 2026 roads, we were actually, I had to take some from each to make the dollar amount work. So yes, they're all from the list that you were already given.
Okay. I'm clear on that. I'll let you take the next question.
Councilmember Shockley.
So I am by no means an expert on road paving materials, but I do wonder what bituminous surface is. And if class 9.5 has a large differentiator between the best and worst of class 9.5, because it's a lot less expensive.
Yeah, that's the state specifications. That's 9.5 millimeters, the largest size in an aggregate to be in the asphalt. Surface course of asphalt is what you put on top, and the binders, the lower base. And we also have the leveling course where we hit dirt or something that doesn't have the current we're supposed to have. And that's what we'll hit. We'll use that. If there's any questions, the bituminous is asphalt. So those first three lines that you see on the bids are for surface course, binder, and for leveling course. Then we have pricing for 1.5 milling for total reclamation, tack coat emulsion, which you put down between the layers so they stick to each other. And also you see some striping on it for single, double center lines, single fog lines on the ends, and stencils for stop bars. You get some lumen seed and also some processed gravel as needed. If we come up to a couple of roads that we're actually reclaiming, the Sisson Road and 3M Road, that we would then need some gravel possibility. So that's why it's in there, just as a placeholder for a dollar amount.
Yeah, I mean, my question really is, I want to make sure, I mean, the idea of fixing roads, fantastic. The more people we can touch with fixing the roads, the better. I just want to make sure we're not using an inferior material that isn't going to last as long.
Nope.
Because it is these top 2 or 3 lines that seem to be a large differentiator here in the costs.
That's the
So,
that's the specification that we put into the bid, and that's per state, the state spec.
all right, thank you.
Everybody follows that spec.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Do we have to vote on the additional funding tonight? Or can we vote on this 1.1 for now and then do a consideration at a future meeting?
I would
Because it
ask-
sounded like you wanted the resolution changed tonight. So I just,
Not at all.
Want to
What I
clarify.
would ask is that in your deliberations, the 1.192 to Cardi is what we're asking for action on, but also the commitment that you're going to put the 2.2 million for ARPA funds available in there so that we can get the additional roads done under the current contract prices. in the event that, right now, if you only give the ARPA fund 1.192, that doesn't give us any room to move forward with getting other roads done within that 2.2, 2.7.
Understood. So quick follow-up to that is, what is the process? Because we believe so we will absolutely get all of these streets if we do the 2.7 tonight, or no?
I prefaced this that based upon unforeseen conditions, that could reduce this. So the 33 proposed roads could be 24 roads or 25. roads.
Understood.
It all depends.
And then who's making that ultimate decision on which streets actually get paved? Will it come back in front of the council? Because I'm just trying to understand how the resolutions are going to work.
Well, you've already seen the 5-year projection, the Pave It Forward plan that had each of the years. What we've done is take the 24 and 25, 26 plans and brought them all into 24 and into this 2023 list.
Understood.
So
I
if
still,
our manager wants to, everything that we did in that PCI index. So if you want me to come back and get each road approved, if you have any questions with the ones that we have presented to you tonight for the additional proposed roads, then we can make those changes. Nothing has been even talked about with them until we get the base contract completed.
understood, Kevin. I just, again, just trying to make sure if we were to approve the 2.7 this evening, I'm not even sure that's what the council wants to do because it's an additional 1.6 million than what we were originally going to vote on tonight. I just want to make sure there's a process in place. I don't think we need a vote on in each individual street. I mean, you're giving, similar to last town council meeting, you had given us a complete list of each district. I liked that. Personally, that was the approach that I would take.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to come in front of us every single meeting with additional street.
And that
personally,
list
but-
goes by district also. with the proposed roads.
Understood. But we just don't know if we're definitely going to get these streets 100%. That's all.
No, I don't.
Thanks.
And the other thing too, I want to comment on is that we had talked about at the last meeting how we needed to build up to in our budget having a regular line item for capital for roads, and the number needed to be around the 2 million mark. So while we could just do the 1.19 tonight, we'll still be below what we need to keep up with what the third party had said we should be investing to maintain the roads.
2 years ago.
Yes.
So,
So while I just don't want us to fall behind again, 1.19 is nothing to shake a stick at, but I also want us to, we had talked about a plan to use ARPA funds to ramp up to operationally funding that. Council Member Paswell.
So the only reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're seeing $1.1 million in this resolution is because the bids came in lower.
correct.
We originally discussed 2.7 when we unleashed this paving program to begin with.
Yeah.
So, I think for me, I had already expected to spend that. And so this is just a great deal. And I think, it would make sense to just approve what I originally had thought about and what was in our packet in the beginning. Because we're gonna get, 110% more done.
And I'll provide to you after this action is taken, the revised 2024, 25, 26, 27 list, and also the 6 to 10 year. We're taking some roads out of there to get into the other year. So we'll be able to that will come in front of you as soon as I'm trying to get it done, but couldn't get it done for tonight. I got 24s done, but that's it.
1 second, Councilor Shockley, Manager Parrillo.
I think the conversation was definitely the 2.7. This council is not going to be appropriating the whole 2.7 because 500 of it is from the state.
Mhm.
So I think the most we can appropriate is 2.2.
Yep.
I think tonight, the reason for the resolution was to fulfill the RFP. So RFPs was 1.2. I think the plan was to award this contract, then off the same contract, award the next 1.2 to get to that 2.2. And that was the intent of just putting the 1.2 on for tonight.
Okay, so then we can at least get started tonight without any further amendments to this resolution. And then if the full new list comes back, there's a next resolution attached for the remaining amount.
Under the
We
same
can do that.
contract.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilor Shockley.
Thank you. So with more than doubling the amount of work, are we still within 90 days that we expect the work to be done?
90 days was for the original contract.
That's what I
So,
thought.
yeah.
So, could we say, are we allowed to say up to for ARPA funds Because if in the timeline it takes to do this work, the state money comes in, or we determine how much of the fair share money we want to use towards this, we could end up using less of the ARPA money.
We'll never use less.
I think, I think,
I know
the
we could keep
commitment is
going.
2.2 opera. I think that is the commitment from the town.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
2.2 is what we wanted to.
Whatever we can get from the
2.7.
And the
2.2.
fair share development fees I'm speaking of are for roads.
Mhm.
So that's not like we're taking from somebody else. That's for just roads, road use. There's approximately 300,000 in that account right now.
Right. So about $800,000 of the work will be done through the state and through Fair Share Development Acts,
It'll add on to the 1.192. Yes.
added to the 1.192. So I think I'm losing myself in the numbers here a little bit.
So
I want to make sure that, well, I understand that Fair Share Acts belong to that and they'll go to that. I want to make sure that we're allocating the ARPA money in
Yeah,
the,
so I think tonight's resolution is 1.2 opera for this particular RFP. Under the same contract, the next round for another 1.1 or so will be ARPA. And then once that state program kicks in, that's probably 6 months out. Once we get that money, then we're going to utilize this same process to get those done as well. And then the fair share fees, I mean, there's no deadline to use that. The money's there. So however, if Kevin runs into a shortage and he needs that, then he can be used in that capacity if he has to.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Just wanted to say, I appreciate the discussion that you had with the town manager. I think that makes complete sense that we don't change this any further tonight. I knew 2.7 wasn't something that we had agreed to spend out of ARPA. So the dollar amount made sense that you guys are talking about, at least to me. And then I just want the exact street listing because I just want to make sure it's broken down fair by district. That's
Yeah.
one of the main reasons why I want that listing.
I can give you those dollar amounts if you like for each district. They're all.
Oh, I'm good. I just wanted a point of clarification. That's all.
We'll do that.
Councilor Ludwig.
So I'm just stating that I would be comfortable with the 1.1 for tonight and then keep bringing it on. If we got a good price here, like keep bringing it on. I'm ready to go. To Councilor Vice President LeBlanc's earlier point about the streets. I also want to see something broken down by that. If one of the counselors gets hit by a bus or something, I don't want this to come back for a vote and be like, oh, well, District 4 or 5 or whatever is gone. District 6 is gone. So we're not going to pave any other roads. Do you know what I mean? I like that idea. It also, in today's day and age, we spent a lot of money on that vendor to come out and look at the roads to prove to the public, number one, how bad they are. And number two, there is no favoritism going on here. This is strictly making decisions by the data that we were provided by a third-party independent source.
And Jervis Street still is not on the list.
Yeah, and I know your street's
For-
not on there.
For reference,
foot isn't
council
even-
leadership, council leadership streets aren't on there till 2031.
Yeah,
So
so I think that's important to show the public that the data is helping us make these decisions. It was a smart move for the council to have that done, and Kevin, for you to work with the vendor and get the data, and we're making impartial, fair decisions using the money. So I would also like to see the list, even if it has some sort of language attached to the resolution that these are the targeted streets.
Yeah.
There could be additional
depending on
expenditures.
pricing and estimate, yes.
Exactly. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Don't Regina George me and Kim, please. Councilmember Pasqua.
I agree with the comments about the list and approving and maybe attaching it. The one thing I'll add to that though is over the last probably month or so, I've had quite a few people from Twin Brook Lane message me about their road, which is not anywhere on the list. And the reason why I bring this particular one up, because I've had other people talk about their roads as well, but this particular one caught my attention because Twin Brook Lane is divided. And one is really nice and it's been repaved and looks great. The other one is a mess. It's really bad.
It's on the revised list.
It's on the revised list.
You'll get that revised list. We're able to do this because we're doing double the amount of roads. We just had, those are both dead end roads with very little traffic. And so we try to prioritize the connector
I get
arterial
that.
roads. So
100%. I guess my concern was I just didn't want there to be confusion where maybe they drove down the paved end and said, this is great and we're all set,
Yeah.
not realizing that the road is cut and it's accessible by going around the block. by 2
Williams
miles.
Crossing is the same things.
Gotcha. Yep, absolutely.
Further discussion on the resolution as amended? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
let's pave some roads.
Good work, Kevin.
Moving on to item B, resolution 2023-37 to award a contract for sound, stage, and lighting services for the Department of Parks and Recreation Billy Gilman concert on June 24th, 2023 to JDI Productions Incorporated, 11 Amflex Drive, Unit 3, Cranston, Rhode Island, 02921. This is on page 51 in your packets to 53. Resolution reads as follows: award of contract, sound, stage, and lighting. Whereas in the town of Coventry, the town council of the town of Coventry hereby affirms the award of a contract for sound, stage, and lighting services for the Department of Parks and Recreation Billy Gilman concert on June 24th, 2023 to JDI Productions Incorporated, 11 Amflex Drive, Unit 3, Cranston, Rhode Island, 02921. Now therefore be it resolved that the Honorable Town Council approves entering into a contract for sound, stage, and lighting services in the amount of $15,540. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion, I'll go to Ms. Blumenthal first.
Yes, we actually met with this vendor. He came highly recommended from Billy Gilman's team, and every interaction was very positive, and they were able to set up on Saturday for our event.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Two questions. Did we get any other bids?
We have one other bid, but it came in higher.
Good answer on that one. And what, is this coming out of your department's budget?
It is.
Thank you.
Further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
and do you want to take this opportunity just to remind the public about what this sound and lighting is being used for?
Absolutely. So this Saturday from 1:30 to 7:30, we have a great celebration. We have local bands playing from 1:30 to 5, including DPW band. We have 10 food trucks. We have a kids play area. And at 5:30 to 7:30, Billy Gilman will be performing and then selling merchandise after, which he will be signing. We have shuttle buses from the Raz parking lot and Coventry High School running throughout the event. So, and a lot of tents just in case there's some light drizzling in the morning.
And can I ask,
Them.
when you say kids events, what ages?
So they're really good for ages probably 12 and under. For the kids play area, we have like sports themed inflatables. We have the police kind of handing out little goodies to the kids. And we have a little balloon twister. So just a little bit for every age group. And then of course, Sunday, we have our fireworks at Coventry High School at 9 o'clock and the lot opens at 7.
Just want to say thank you to you and your team for all the preparation that went into this.
Yes,
I
thank
think
you very much.
Hopefully this isn't the first and the last. I hope it continues.
I hope so.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Moving on to item C, resolution 2023-38, adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 2024 on page 54 and 55 in your packet. The resolution reads as follows: adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 2024. Whereas in the town of Coventry, the town manager proposed the 2023 to 2024 municipal budget to the town council in the amount of $116,992,019 as set forth in the town of Coventry Home Rule Charter, section 8.14. And the town council voted to approve a provisional budget on June 1st, 2023 in the amount of $116,631,636, which included the following: the anticipated general property tax levy of $78,422,939. And anticipated state aid, general government, other departmental, and school department revenues are anticipated to be $38,218,697. An anticipated local appropriation for the school department to be $50,523,936. These funds will supplement state education aid, other school revenues, and the SRP pension contribution made by the town on behalf of the school department for a total school operating budget of $79,221,244 and a $410,747 appropriation for capital improvement projects and a $500,000 appropriation for contingency and an $821,547 appropriation from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, for one-time town projects, which are outside the proposed operating budget, and an approximate appropriation of $320,000 be appropriated from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, for one-time school department projects not to be included or counted toward the town's so-called maintenance of effort or to be part of the fiscal 2024 operating budget. Now therefore be it resolved, the Coventry Town Council approves the fiscal 2023 to 2024 operating budget in the amount of $160,631,636 and levies and orders the assessment and collection of a tax on the rateable real estate and tangible personal property of said town in a sum of not less than $78,422,939 and not more than $79,422,939. Said tax is for the ordinary expenses, payment of interest and indebtedness in whole or in part of said town and for other purposes authorized by law. The tax assessor shall assess and apportion said tax on the inhabitants and rateable property of said town as of the 31st day of December 2022 at 12 o'clock midnight Eastern Standard Time, according to the law, and shall, on completion of said assessment, date and sign same, and shall make up and certify to the Director of Finance for the town of Coventry, who shall forthwith issue and affix to said copy a warrant under his hand, directed to the collector of taxes of said town, commanding her to proceed and collect taxes on the persons and estates liable therefor. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second it.
second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion. Vice President LeBlanc.
I'd like to make an amendment to row 50, starts with number 2. It says in a sum not less than 78,422,939 and not more than 79,422,939. The amendment would be to change that second number, that 79,422,939 to 78,900,000 even.
I'll second it for discussion.
Motion to amend by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion. Vice President LeBlanc.
The amendment is coming from a discussion that I had prior to the meeting tonight with the town manager and the finance director. If you take the difference between the 78,422 and the 79,422, it's $1 million swing. Since our current ask is 3.23%, and since about $750,000 to 800,000 would be a 1% swing in that percentage, we can't go above 4%. So that second number needs to be around the $78,900,000. And the only reason why we have this cushion between the 78,422,939 and this now 78,900,000 is for property tax abatements. So that's where that cushion comes from, but we cannot be north of 4% legally. Member Ludwig asked, what about the abatements? So people can abate their taxes after the tax bill goes out. So the town needs to have this cushion, because if a significant amount of abatements come in, they can utilize the difference. The town can. I mean, I don't know if Mr. Civetti, you want to add anything to that, but I think
Mr. Civetti.
I think especially this year with having the revaluation, you have, possibility that you'd have more people coming in once they actually receive the tax bills. Although we already had a time period when they could have came in and talked with the vendor, once they actually see the tax bill, they may come in. And so it just gives you a little more leeway. Where the final levy is not going to be the exact amount that's in the budget. It gives us a cushion to go up a little bit more so that we're accounting for that. Because the budget as presented and as approved by the council in previous years, it's a very aggressive budget. Currently budget about 99.7% collection rate. So having the reval year, if we had to get a significant amount of abatements coming in, there's no way if we just, if you voted just to approve that bottom line levy, we'd be setting ourselves up for failure, in my opinion. So.
Technical term is leeway. I use cushion.
Thank you.
Discussion on the amendment. Councilman Pasqua.
Actually, amendment, no.
Councilmember Shockley.
So just to be clear, I mean, personally, I'd like to have it as close to the number as possible. I don't want to be overtaxing anyone. But is that, you've had the discussion with the finance director, you said, and I just want to make that clear. If that's a doable number, then I would like to, I also agree it should be closer to what we've deemed to be the necessary levy. I
Yes,
understand.
we have, and
Perfect.
again, I think if, you've passed a similar resolution, or maybe not this council, but the council in Coventry has, in a previous period, you did approve a range, and most communities give you that range because it is a constantly moving number until we're tied down. Because just over the past week or two, when we came up with our valuation, there's been some changes made. So as the tax assessor is still going through, but at this point, I think we're locked down. But again, you want to leave yourself a little cushion. And just to, if I can, to throw a number out there, so a penny on the real estate taxes generates about 34,000 on residential. A penny on commercial generates about 5,500. So you can see we can increase commercial significantly and not make up what we're gonna make up just by 1 penny in residential. And that goes back to, discussion this council's had before, where we really need in the town to look to increase in the commercial base so that the residents aren't bearing all the burden of the taxes. But you can see what 1 penny brings in. From the tangible side, 1 cent brings in $1,000. So so it's really heavy on the residential. So again, we gave you proposed rates that were in the advertisement that went out there. You may see a penny change, 2 pennies changes between there. We're not talking significant changes, but I understand your point that any increase is more. But again, we don't want to be caught where, we may be caught in the current fiscal year that we're short on revenue. We want to make sure that we're getting you a balanced budget.
Further discussion on the amendment. Council Ludwig.
Can we just talk about the amount just a little bit more to go piggyback on that? So the 500K, just put it in perspective, like right now in our earlier conversation, we are at least a $411,000 deficit. We don't know what the end of June is going to bring, but it sounds like what you've said is we have done better job being more conservative about revenue projections. So is 500 still necessary? I don't like the word cushion. That makes it feel like we're padding something. If we're being more conservative, why would we go for 500 versus say the 250 example we used a little earlier in the night?
Again, we may, it's possible that, the range here has given us an upper limit. When we actually finalize the levy and set the tax rate, we may come in at 78,622. We might only be 200,000 above. By you approving that range, it's just giving us a cap if we have to go up that high.
Flexibility for the town.
Flexibility.
Just for those, we don't know what those abatements could possibly be. So they have 90 days to file that abatement with the tax assessor. So we don't know what that number could be. And because of the aggressive collection rate we put in place, there's not a lot of wiggle room if we have a bad year in collections. So we thought we need that flexibility.
So it's not really, what did you call it, Council? Not a cushion,
Leeway.
leeway?
Yeah.
Maybe we can use that terminology here so our residents better understand that we're not padding anything here. Like this is a true concern. So thank you for bringing up the abatements. I do think there are going to be some people, probably myself included, that have a little bit of sticker shock with the reval and then seeing the actual number. And I suspect there will be a number of people that come back in. So thank you.
Yeah, originally my issue is that the original swing was $1 million in this, and we can't be over that 4%. I just wanted us to be at least abiding by state law.
Further discussion on the amendment. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we're now back to the resolution as amended. Discussion, Councilman Pasqua.
I know we had discussions about the tax rates and adjusting them with the municipal finance to kind of level out the commercial residential balance a little bit. Where are we with that? And what are we thinking for a rate with this particular budget now? Does it change from the 1588 residential that we originally heard?
Yes, as noted in the ad that went out, currently we're anticipating the residential to be at 1532, commercial at $20.35, and tangible at approximately 21.25. So we were able, because of the reval year, we did have that discussion with the Department of Municipal Finance. We did not have to stick to that exact proportionate relationship. We will discuss with the town solicitor, town manager, and again, municipal finance, to see for next year if we have to put some type of resolution in, so that, because it's not going to be a reval year, will we have to stay proportionate, or can we deviate from that? So we are looking into that. I know this year we talked about trying to get an emergency thing pushed through, but once we reached out to them and got it clarified that we didn't have to have that in effect right now, it's something we'll certainly look at and be proactive for next year, so that if we need that in place, it's done well before we have to pass a budget.
Councilmember Shockley.
Would it be difficult to determine what the rate? So as we are giving out the rate to taxpayers in the first year that the council has approved a budget, would it be hard to note the rate that the taxes would have been at, the per thousand rate, if we hadn't increased the budget at all? Like we decided to put in a 0 increase, because I think what we really need to let the taxpayers know is this year's increase is this much, as the way it would have been if we hadn't revaled. Like usually we can say your taxes went up X dollars or X cents sometimes. This year it's going to seem as if your tax increased or maybe decreased depending, but if you're seeing the increase, you're going to see a much larger increase than is based on this budget. You're seeing an increase based on the revaluation of your home. This budget's just a minor part of that. So it's just something that I want to bring up, because I think residents are really going to need to know that we approved a budget within the limits we always would have had to approve a budget within, whether or not it went to vote or referendum. But the reval is what was the real factor here.
I think we could certainly come up with reduce it to get back to what the budget would have been. And, that reduction coming just from the property taxes to get that calculation. So, and again, there's all, under the current situation with the reval, there is some wiggle room, because we could have reduced, residential more, went higher on commercial. It's just that fine balance, but we can get you some different scenarios of where we would have been had we not had the increase.
Yeah. And my other question is, based on some of the scenarios you sent us out when determining that we could lower the residential rate by about close to 60 cents. In some ways, the commercial rate would have had the same issue. Increasing that was actually negatively impacting our small businesses far more than it would have been impacted our big box stores.
To an extent, you're right. And again, with any revaluation, you're always going to have historically a third go higher, a third stay the same, a third go down.
Mhm.
That holds true for commercial. I think one of the largest commercial properties we have in town, in the first scenario we looked at, it showed that their taxes were actually going to decrease by $66,000. So the ones we were able to adjust the rates, they may be seeing a tax decrease now of 12,000, but again, or 20,000, it decreased significantly. But had we kept dropping that commercial or raising that commercial higher, they might have now broke even, but that smaller business was going to
Yeah.
see a huge increase. So
Yeah,
again,
that was
it's
part
a
of what I
very
was
tough
looking at there.
balance.
We were starting to hurt our small businesses in order to have our big box stores, pay what we see as the fair share. So the commercial rate's the same across the board. And I think that is something, if we could look into, does it have to be?
Generally commercial, I don't know if there may be ways we could set up different tiers, and I'd have to, talk to the
Yeah.
municipal finance, but if there's a way you can do industrial, and what's a classification for an industrial versus a commercial, that's something we
I
could
think it's
certainly
worth
explore
looking
with
at.
the solicitor and municipal finance. But I think it all goes back to getting legislation approved so that you have either a 3-tier system, a 4-tier system, 5 tiers. and breaking it down. Because I know there's some communities that obviously residential's taxed at one, but then if it's more than 3 units, it's something different, 5 units.
Yeah.
And it goes back to maybe on your residential, you have that separation. And like other communities, they have homestead exemptions that are in there, which everybody that's a single family resident gets a homestead exemption, but somebody that's not a single family, they don't have that deduction. So a lot of different things you could do, but obviously one of the big impacts right now in the community is that freeze. Because there's obviously a certain tax base now that, you know, their taxes are frozen. So even though their values went up, we can't get any more money from them. So.
Sure.
Further discussion on the resolution as amended? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to item D, resolution 2023-39, transfer fiscal 2023 unexpended funds to capital projects revolving fund. This is on page 56 of your packet. Resolution reads as follows: transfer fiscal 2023 unexpended funds to capital projects revolving fund. Whereas in the town of Coventry, the fiscal 2022 to 2023 budget was adopted and included a budget line item for capital improvement plan projects totaling $555,354. And the fiscal 2022-23 budget included $1,078,540 budget for the operations of the town library. And the town manager shall be permitted and authorized to transfer any and all unspent balances of the fiscal 22-23 capital improvement plan line item, along with $37,074 in the library fiscal 2022-2023 operating budget within the general fund budget to a newly created capital projects revolving fund. Now therefore be it resolved that the Coventry Town Council approves the establishment of a capital projects revolving fund effective upon the passage of this resolution and authorizes the transfer of all unspent funds from the fiscal 2022 to 2023 capital improvement plan line item in the general fund budget, along with a transfer of $37,074 from the library department budget for fiscal 22-23. These funds will be utilized in future fiscal years in accordance with the requirements of resolution 2023-34 adopted by the Town Council on June 13th, 2023. And any future capital acquisitions which may be approved by the Town Council. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second it.
second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion. Manager Parrillo, if you want to speak to this.
Sure. Director Civetti and I want this new fund in order to realize the capital money that has been put aside, most importantly, in this year's budget for the generator. So it's approximately 290,000, I believe it is. So instead of having that money just go into fund balance and then having to reallocate different money to it, we want to carry that money over to the next fiscal year, along with the 37,000 from the library that Megan agreed to. That way we have that money available when that generator does come in, hopefully by January.
Discussion from the council on the resolution. Council Ludwig.
It's absolutely smart idea. Thank you for putting all of this together. We haven't seen this before because we didn't have our act together. So this is wonderful. I know there have been, over the last several decades, certain councils have been proud that they have had zero or level funded budgets, that they have not done CIP. I'm glad that I'm working on a council that people see the value in investing in the future. And when we can't quite make it, to find a solution so we can hold those funds and use them in the right way the following year. So thank you for being smart.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yeah, just wanted to check. These are the budgets for the capital improvement in the library. And then what was the full capital improvement budget left? Plus 37,000 from the library, like that was what was the remainder of their budgets, or?
The 37,000 is specifically for the generator project. I believe there are a couple other smaller projects done, but most of the capital projects were done in 22-23 budget. So the big one is the generator.
But that comes from this $555,000. Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to check to see
Mhm.
if this was the remainder. So
Yes.
that's great. Thank you.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Just curious, I think this is a fantastic idea. I love any savings gets rolled into this. But if you look at the financial statements that are issued, there is a page for the 2021 financial statements, it's page 37. There's a listing of funds with deficit fund balances. And that currently, at least as of June 30th, 2021, was 1,225,000. So how do those deficits get paid off if any savings that we have were rolling into this new fund?
What I'd have to do is look at the details of what those funds are. It's possible, you know, if there's capital projects fund, special revenue funds, there could have been a timing that personally, if it's a special revenue fund and we had a receivable coming in, we should have booked the receivable. So I need to dig into those a little more to see what they are. But essentially, if we have these deficits in the funds that have been carrying forward, at some point, we just need the council to take action to say, we're gonna forgive, because basically your general fund has a receivable from those other funds.
Mhm.
And if those other funds have no ability to pay, we basically have to write off that receivable. So your general fund balance would take the hit for that. And again, until we know the specifics of it, then we'd come forward with town manager, we'd put something together, propose, hey, let's write these off. They've been there for years. There's no funding source to get rid of the deficits. So the general fund needs to take the hit.
Okay, so essentially we're setting up this capital fund, but we take other funds to pay off those deficits.
Right.
If the
And again,
council, if the council so choose.
Right. And again, from the capital fund side, I think we've had discussions various times about different things where we say, you know, if a line item wasn't spent, especially for capital, let's put it aside for future capitals rather than just rolling with the
Understood.
general fund.
Oh, I totally agree with that too. So,
You know, we'll be coming forward. I think it's in the intent we had talked about in the budget process, one of the line items for the tax assessor's office for the future reval. So there's a budget line item in the budget you just approved that says for
like
reval. that we-
165, I think.
Yeah, we don't expect on spending that this year, but we're gonna look to
You wanna
set
roll
up
it forward.
a fund to get it aside so that 3 years from now, when we have the full reval and we're not getting any state funding for it, we're not seeing a spike in the budget for 500,000 to pay for that. We already have the money aside, so.
Appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to E, sewer tie-in applications. Item A, 1016 Tioga Ave, commercial sewer connection, CPM Auto Inc. And we have item B, 2305 New London Turnpike, commercial sewer connection, AIM Realty Coventry LLC. Start with item A. The resolution starts, or rather the materials in your packet start on page 57. Pages of the resolution. Resolution for item A is on page 73 in your packet. Commercial sewer connection, 1016 Tioga Ave, whereas in the town of Coventry, after examining the applications, designs, plans, and all other submitted documentation, the town engineer has recommended approval for the commercial sewer connection at 1016 Tioga Ave, Assessor Plat 28, Lot 43.3, and the applicant's designs, plans, and other documentation comply with all federal, state, Coventry rules, regulations, ordinances, and the town engineer's review comments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Honorable Town Council approves the recommended commercial sewer connection application for CPM Auto Inc. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion. Assistant Manager Broadbent.
Good evening, Madam President, members of council, Maria Broadbent, Assistant Town Manager. I'm just here to answer any questions you have. This applicant came before the sewer subcommittee on June 14th and was granted their approval. And that they have already, the property's already had a sewer assessment based on the building that was already there from 2007. So they've had a full review from our engineer and they're good to go.
Discussion from members of the council. Vice President LeBlanc.
For both resolutions, we can start with 2023-40. I'd just like to make an amendment to them, the exact same amendment, that we just add a third bullet point after where it says the applicant's design plans, so on and so forth. that it's contingent upon the applicant providing the name and address of the contractor. Currently, for both of these sewer tie-ins, it says to be determined, but we need to A, know the name of the contractor, and B, make sure that they're licensed and have the bond in place. So just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely. And if I may, that's a standard requirement. They will not be issued a permit unless we have approved, licensed, bonded contractors.
Understood.
They wouldn't get a permit.
I was just trying to be consistent with the motion made at the sewer subcommittee.
Absolutely.
Madam Clerk, did you get the full text of that amendment?
Contingent on the name of the contractor.
Contingent upon the name of the contractor to ensure that they're licensed.
We have a motion to amend the resolution by Vice President Blank. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion on the amendment.
And
Hearing,
again- sorry,
oh,
and
sorry.
again, that was just the amendment that was made to the resolution at the sewer subcommittee level. It was made by one of the members of the committee.
further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we're now back to the resolution as amended. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to item B, 2305, New London Turnpike, Commercial Sewer Connection, AIM Realty Coventry LLC. This resolution is on
92.
92, last page in our packet. Commercial Sewer Connection, 2305 New London Turnpike, whereas the town of Coventry, after examining the applications, designs, plans, and all other submitted documentation, the town engineer has recommended approval for the commercial sewer connection at 2305 New London Turnpike, Assessor Plat 7, Lot 15. And the applicant's designs, plans, and other documentation comply with all federal, state, Coventry rules, regulations, ordinances, and the town engineer's review comments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Honorable Town Council approves the recommended commercial sewer connection application for AIM Realty Coventry LLC. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Vice President Blank. Second from Councilman Pasqua. Discussion. We've had something put on the dais here. Manager Parrillo, if you want to just elaborate.
Yes, we had a meeting with the tax collector, Monique, Maria, the solicitor, and I, coming up with an evaluation for the sewer assessment for this piece of property. So her determination was that the $222,052.51 would be the sewer assessment for this particular establishment. So I just wanted to pass that out. It was kind of waiting to have this discussion to make sure that we were following all of the sewer ordinance to the best of our ability, making sure that we had the right figure. So that's the assessment, and we'll be passing that on to the Crossman Engineering, who's been looking for that tomorrow morning.
If I may.
Yes.
So we're basing it on the 2009 ordinance, but we won't know the final assessment number until the building's actually constructed. So using best information that we have and the cost of building another scrub and dub car wash, it's going to be in that ballpark.
Discussion from the council. Vice President LeBlanc.
I just want to ensure that if this does get approved this evening, that it also gets forwarded on to the applicant, the assessed value,
Yes,
because they were asking for that at the sewer subcommittee.
yes.
Thanks.
Vice President LeBlanc, did you need to make the same amendment?
I do. I'll make an amendment to this resolution as well, to be contingent upon the applicant providing the name and address of the contractor to ensure they are licensed.
I'll second it.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion on the amendment. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Moving on to the resolution as amended.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, no, we already
No,
have it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving on to item 10, Council President Communications. This evening, we've reached kind of the halfway point in the calendar year. I just kind of wanted to go over the completed items in terms of legislation and policy updates. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's the ones that were culled from the work we've done so far in council meetings. And the upcoming items are ones that I know I've heard from other council members on in terms of getting to in the calendar year. So I'll just go through briefly. In our completed items this year so far, the council has allocated 1.3 million in ARPA funds to our fire districts. We've supported the establishment of historic districts, which we heard good news on that this week. Aaron Brewster and Norma Smith, the committee, they actually received double the grant that they were asking for. So they were awarded, and as so far as we know, that'll be moving forward, but we'll get more details on that. So good news for there. We conducted an OMA and ethics training for town employees and board members. This is not just a one and done thing. We're still working on making sure we're compliant in all areas and making this something that's second nature for our town employees and our board members and any other volunteers with town function. We hired a grant writer for the town. This is for the public and outside vendors, so we're paying them a flat fee per month. This is not a town employee. We hired specific, under the direction of the solicitor, hired specific outside counsel and made a financial commitment to hire experts in the Johnson's Pond litigation efforts. So really making that a top priority for the council. We submitted 6 projects to the DEM priority list related to sewer and wastewater improvements that are high priority needs. We're preserving our town historical artifacts. We've had the bicentennial map, wooden map, hand painted, sitting in our back room here at Town Hall for a long time. It's now off and being reclaimed, and we're hoping to have a nice celebration unveiling of that in August to coincide with the town's anniversary. We've made a commitment to improving education outcomes as a municipality with the governor's office. Successfully coordinated legislative execution and General Assembly ratification of the voter approved charter question, specifically as it relates to the change in terms for school committee. And then also successfully coordinated legislative execution and General Assembly approvals of the School Construction Bond Act. And I will say we had really good relations this year with our General Assembly delegation. Solicitor Angel can attest to that. Things worked really well. It was great collaboration and teamwork. So thank you to our General Assembly members who helped get these things through. And that's not just on those bills. Anything else that related to Coventry, we had really good communication back and forth. And everybody was, working their role. Our rock star, Mr. Robillard, he secured the RIPTA partnership for transport vans for the Human Services Department, and that's free. That's got to be one of the big wins of the year. And executing purchases on the FY23 capital improvement projects that were not addressed to this point in the fiscal year. That seems like something little, but it's getting done, and it's something like a generator for our town hall and town buildings over here is extremely important. Upcoming items. Looks like in probably by the end of July, in front of you, you'll have school bond referendum ballot language to approve. That calendar has been produced. The referendum date is set for October 3rd. And then in early August, the approved ballot language from the council then has to go to our local board of canvassers and then to the state board of elections. So that's progressing forward. We can take this off upcoming and put it into completed, but we made a commitment this evening to infrastructure maintenance with the Pave It Forward program, taking a first step. We heard tonight about the timeline for the completion of the FY22 and FY23 audits and finalizing the neglected requisitions. We're exploring the optimization of sanitation operations. I believe Mr. Parrillo has already had conversations with outside counsel, not outside counsel, but professional organizations on that. So that's active right now. We're waiting on DEM. They're running behind on doing their review of our wastewater facilities plan that was supposed to come to us this month. They projected, but they're behind. So it won't be until either next month or August that we'll have the wastewater plan in front of us for ratification. And then the comprehensive plan, that should be coming forward to us soon. We should know that a lot of the conversations I'm hearing at the League of Cities and Towns with all the other cities and towns, not every single one of them, but most of them, we're ahead of the 8 ball. So we may have been really behind, over 20 years behind in updating ours when we started it a year and a half ago now. But there's a lot of communities now that are being pressured to get it done before a certain deadline that the Speaker of the House has set. So we're going to be hitting the ground running. Not to mention, we have our new planning director that started, is already working with the solicitor to rewrite a lot of our land use regulations as we speak. I don't know if Solicitor Angel, you want to get into a little bit of what you're working on with Mr. McLean.
I'll just make a brief comment. It just doesn't end with the change to the comprehensive plan. Obviously, we will be doing some pretty comprehensive revisions to the subdivision regulations to make sure that everything is congruous. There are some other things that we'll be looking to change as well. So we're in discussions right now with the planner's office. We should be further ahead of the 8 ball, if you will, once you guys get the comprehensive plan, pass it, and ladies, pass the comprehensive plan. And then we'll be bringing before you ordinances to change the zoning section of the town code to make sure that we're up to date and compliant.
Thank you. We're planning to conduct an analysis of the tax freeze policy. I've already had conversations with the town finance director, the town manager, and Ms. Martini. We're hoping to have initial discussions on what to bring forth to the council for consideration by mid to late July internally, and then bring it to you guys probably the following month. So that's on the radar. It's in the pipeline. She's very excited to have that conversation. She has a lot of ideas, and I know there was previous work that was done on that. Restarting the traffic committee. I know that that's a huge piece. We're working on getting that up and running. I know we're working on getting some applicants for members of the public, but otherwise a large majority of that committee is made up of town staff. We've talked about it for a long time, establishing a DPW salt and sand rollover ordinance. So for years like this, where it was a mild winter, we can, much like we're doing with our capital unspent funds, roll over to help just smart fiscal planning. Conducting an impact fee analysis. That's another piece our solicitor is also taking a look at with our new planning director. Analyzing the future of fire services in town with third-party survey results. Mr. Parrillo, what's the new timeline on when we should get those results from Dynamics?
Mary Ellen, we had to push it out a month because of some conflicting schedules. Mary Ellen is coming the week of September 11th to do her 3-day in-house evaluation of the fire districts. And she said we should have a preliminary report from her 30 days after that.
Got it. We're also, many of you have come to me about the Financial Oversight Committee being established. So that's on our radar. We need to get over the hump, hopefully before the holiday season this year. Maybe we could. I've talked with Councilor Ludwig about getting that EDC gift card program for small businesses in town over the finish line. So that's on the radar. And then finalizing the agreement for the landfill solar array as well. So just wanted to give a kind of a recap. I'd ask if there's any discussion, keep it to things that are listed on the agenda. Want to make sure we stay compliant with OMA. My phone and my door is always open if any members of the council would like to grab breakfast or coffee or me and just talk about anything that they'd like to see on this list, or maybe things you maybe have changed your mind in terms of priority about. Would be great to hear. I think we've accomplished a big chunk in addition to getting our ship rowing in the right direction, everybody moving in the right direction. So we can move as fast or as slow as this council deems in terms of what we can get done and what can get accomplished. So Councilor Ludwig.
I have 2 questions. Thank you for the list. Where do you see, I'll give you two examples and just ask, do you see that on this list, or are these more like specific asks that we need to direct to the town manager? So for example, two things that we've talked about, one tonight and one in a previous meeting, creating the new procedure for notice of violations, going to the municipal court, some sort of new business procedure, and then creating some type of maintenance plan. I think Councilor Pasqua asked about when is that being established. So are those things that you're considering in this type of list, or more as a town manager type of list?
I mean, yeah, those are ones that could come in. I think I was thinking kind of more macro-y, but I do think your municipal court point is well taken, and it's also falls into a lot of what the solicitor's been doing and tightening up processes. Like, I know the finance department's been tightening up their processes, and the IFB process is being tightened up. And I know that we were streamlining things in the clerk's office with license applications all looking the same and uniform, all responses, like, so those things I think more in terms of function, but I think the two things that you mentioned are definitely macro level. So it sounds like you mentioned, kind of master plan-ish for town.
Yeah,
Was the
I
other
don't think
one.
they have to come through the council. I think it's more probably on the town manager side. So that's fine if they're not on here.
Mhm.
I know we've talked about it. And then my second question would be, it sounds like we can reach out to you about any other kind of big macro ticket items. Well, we don't have to go into all the details. I do have an item that I want to get on your and the solicitor's radar for new ordinance that I think particularly affects districts 2, 1, 2, and 5. About
We can
using-
chat offline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that is something that I would want to kind of put out there and figure out how do we get it on the solicitor's radar for review.
Yeah. I don't mean to cut you short. I just don't want to get into violation territory. Councilmember Shockley.
And I just wanted to be clear on this list. It seems like everything is either completed or is intended to be completed in calendar year 2023.
That's my hope.
Okay.
As long as everybody continues to, work as hard as they are and remain dedicated to learning and streamlining our processes. And, I mean, we have a good group here. I have to say, when I came for we have it on here so I can talk about it. The commitment to the municipal education compact. We had all department heads come. And the governor was super impressed with the attendance. Town staff worked with Joanne and Dan to put together a really nice spread of refreshments with a tablecloth. We had the tablecloth with the town seal. Somebody who worked here, I forget who it was, picked flowers from their own yard and put an arrangement together for the governor's visit. And town staff were smiling and they were talking with each other and enjoying themselves and coming in, and it was nice to feel the pride, and it seemed like people enjoyed working here. I heard some laughs from over there when I was in here. It was really, really nice. And you can see that reflected in the work product and the amount that's getting done here to support us. So I'm getting a little teary-eyed. That's what I have to say on that. But yeah, so to answer your question, I think it's doable to get there by the end of this calendar year. Anybody, any other discussion? All right, thank you. Moving on to public comment for undocketed items. Are there any members of the public here in council chambers who'd like to make a comment on an undocketed item, something not on the agenda this evening? Any members of the public on Zoom? Public comment on a non-docketed item. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. Now moving on to executive or closed session items. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for the following. Item A, executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, recollective bargaining of the IBPO contract. Item B, executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, section 42-46-5A2, relitigation involving the Center of New England Retail Development, and more particularly Nicholas E. Cambio, trustee, et al. V Commerce Park Realty LLC et al. CA number PM 2013-0350, and Matthew J. McGowan as and only as receiver for Commerce Park Realty LLC et al. V Commerce Park Management LLC, CA number PM 2013-5001. And item C, executive or closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, section 42-46-5A2, relitigation involving Social Holdings LLC in the town of Coventry, CA number KC 2020-0769.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Shockley. Discussion. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes,
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
we will now go into executive session. May I have a vote to come out of executive session? I mean, a motion to come out of executive.
I'll make
session.
a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion from Vice President LeBlanc, second from Councilmember Shockley. Discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua. Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Can I have a motion to seal the minutes of executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilman Pasqua. Discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Ludwig.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Councilmember Pasqua. Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Members of the public, the council met in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, recollective bargaining of the IBPO contract, and pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, relitigation involving the Center of New England Retail Development, and more particularly Nicholas E. Cambio, trustee, et al. V. Commerce Park Realty LLC, et al., and Matthew J. McGowan as and only as receiver for Commerce Park Realty LLC, et al. V. Commerce Park Management LLC. And pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, relitigation involving Social Holdings LLC in the town of Coventry, CA number KC 2020-0769. Discussion was had, no votes were taken. Could I have a motion to adjourn at 10:05 PM?
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilmember Shockley. All those in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned until July 11th.